Yo, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy Jerry Trace back with another banger video. Hope all you guys are having a wonderful day. And today's video is going to be a really nice video that I've been waiting to make with you guys. I really, want to always touch back that I made this channel for the younger me, for the individual that maybe just needs help, like kind of getting started, getting those wheels turning in life, As you develop, you learn a little bit more about yourself. You learn if you really enjoy, maybe the experience of providing for yourself independently. And with that comes learning how to pay for your bills, your rent, your car payment, your car insurance, etc. If you have kids, now you're learning more, how to provide for someone else and eventually aim to get your own home. And I realized this very young too. This is an enormous amount of responsibility that genuinely could be a point where so many people can either make really big, ways of getting ahead or make big mistakes that set them back. And I always try to make this channel to share the advice that helped me at such a young adult. When I left my mom's house at 17 years old, helped me develop much quicker and experience life more fulfillingly and filled with more experiences that I never really expected out of my life. I've been blessed and I really am super grateful, but a way of kind of expressing that gratitude is just sharing it with you guys and just giving out my experience, and this is something that I really want to highlight for any individual, right? I think a lot of individuals sometimes aren't like the happiest, especially when you're young, figuring out what you want to do. We all have these responsibilities and kind of this entitlement to having to work for money, majority of us at least. I have friends that have very wealthy parents that all they do is their hobbies, all they do is travel and explore and shop. They have luxurious lifestyles, but I don't come from that, and I have to learn how to be able to put myself in a better position for not only myself to maybe enjoy that freedom and luxury of life, but also maybe pass it down to the next generation that comes after me to hopefully give them an easier entry and a much more, less stressful upbringing, when you have to develop and learn how to take care of yourself, work in certain working environments, emotional states that maybe you're not the happiest, right? Like, to save my child from all of that struggle and let him really express himself and gain the perspectives from a different lens than, growing up in LA, watching, your uncles in gangs, selling drugs, just the negatives of these environments, right? And it's unfortunate, when you see like your family members incarcerated, they can't get normal jobs, a lot of individuals and, my own family don't have college degrees, don't own any businesses, so it's hard to really get some of this, I guess you can say inspiration. So, developing this for myself and trying to figure it out this entirety of my technically life until maybe 21 when I really got the hang of it was a real life-changing and self-developing experience that I really tell all of you guys, if you're not the happiest working where you're at, it's okay, it's something that we all sacrifice to, go hard today to live a better tomorrow. And it's important you use the job, you start giving yourself some sort of structure behind your finances, so then you aren't necessarily just unorganized with how you disperse your income, but you're actually learning how to now, hey, allocate this much for my investments, allocate this much towards my savings, allocate this much for my spending. So now you have some sort of structure, which is why I highlight my personal finance videos, so you have some sort of an escape plan. And that escape plan is why I have made this video today to share with you guys. I mentioned it in my previous videos, but it's never been this oriented towards this topic as of till now. And that escape plan, for many individuals, it's hard to maybe figure it out at the beginning. I understand that, especially not having any inspiration or any guidance, but I want you to know that it's going to be in that little idea that you believe in, that you always wanted to do, and going through it enough where it sucks and it feels like it's a waste of your time, but going with the right steps to make sure that, hey, maybe the result might not be today or tomorrow, but in 2-3 months from now, I'm guaranteeing myself I'm gonna make my first sale, I'm gonna meet new people, establish new clients, and move on forward. And this is an important step in life where you now start to develop what we call your business. And this is very important. Why? Because you want to start developing an independent income stream that's in your control. So then, you're not too reliant on your current employer for your lifeline, And I'm not going to say that, hey, you gotta replace your lifeline with your business. No, like if you enjoy what you do and you love where you're at, keep that lifeline for that social experience, the environment if you love it, and then add to your independent lifeline. It just helps. Of course, I remember everyone has different goals in life. Some people don't want to put in all this, work for, a more financial independence or getting that home early in life. I'm not saying buy the biggest home. I'm not saying go buy McLarens or Lamborghinis. I'm just saying for an individual to acquire those not individual, but those like, those you can say kind of basic living essentials. We all need our home. We all need to pay off our cars. And, we all need to maybe take some vacations, raise a family. These are experiences that sometimes we don't get to fulfill the most of simply because we're taught to exchange so much of our time for that financial resource. And this is where I want to point it out too. I kind of gained this perspective for those of you that wonder how I began to think this way. Unfortunately, I grew up in California. I mean, very fortunately, it's a great place to live, but it's very economically overpriced. Not overpriced as, but economically, it's a higher place to live compared to the rest of the US. And adapting to that, right? Looking at homes that are now selling for $800,000, $1 million, $650,000 on a 30-year mortgage plan, assuming you are making $100,000 a year, which to begin with for many, like, it's not the start. It's, pretty difficult to achieve that amount on your, early career. So with, starting at that stage and maybe even, you are there, assuming you don't spend a single dollar for 10 years, you'll make $1 million. Assuming you don't spend a single dime for 10 years. And unfortunately, that's not the reality. The reality is you have to pay taxes. The reality is, you have these expenses and responsibilities that you need to take care of. Some of people have already children that they need to provide for. And that's, now if it took us 10 years to make that much and technically just pay off our home within 10 years, imagine what it's going to take you to then travel, to maybe then, provide more for your kids, pay for their college, have some sort of a backup established, a trust in place to be able to help them, pass down more assets as they grow and mature. These are extreme, perspectives and points in life that, hey, as someone that's, and a provider that looks to aim to take care of their parents, maybe raise their own child, you have to think about it because that's what it's going to come down to, the money. So if you have different goals in life, it's amazing, do what fulfills you and makes you happy the most. But in reality, the way that things are shaping right now in 2026, it's a real economic shift, really taking out the middle class and separating the rich from the poor. And I highlighted that in my last video, and I really want to keep, giving you guys this advice, this help to maybe navigate and just believe in yourself. Because trust me, bro, there's so many people that even if you do get rejected in starting your business, you're always going to find someone that will support it. Maybe it's going to be a ratio of 1 in 100. It's okay. Keep on going, man. Just never stop. So, highlighting that for you guys, I really want to now establish, hey, using your current lifeline to now start believing in that idea of a product or maybe service. It's not going to take you $100-$300 to start this business. Start putting a little bit more thought and action into saving for this business. So maybe you're not buying in at such a grand scale and putting yourself at risk of not having enough demand to fulfill this business or replace your current job. That's why I want to highlight, my experience with this online business as I slowly shifted from one of my previous businesses that was generating significant amount of income, but genuinely I feel like as you begin to mature, you find passions for different things, and it really was more of a passion of me to be able to help and work with other individuals around this topic of businesses and money. And that's when I began my online business behind consulting and just being a coach for a lot of individuals. I'm not going to say I'm a well-established 10-year experienced CFO, CEO, or chief of marketing, but I have been able to find my own personal success and really clear a 6-figure income at just 23 years old. And it really is something that I never thought was possible. And that's what I want to share with you guys. Like, none of us think it's possible until, hey, it happens, and now we be able to live the result. And that's what happens as a business owner or just someone who takes actions on those dreams. You're going to live the consequence of both the good of doing the work and the bad of not doing the work. In the end, the message is there. You know, every individual here works for a corporation or works for someone who established that business. So the real question is, why not you? You know, why can't you start that business? And there's just a lot of little mental handicaps, capital handicaps that you have to learn to navigate and get around. And I feel like a lot of individuals, you know, I'm not sure the exact statistic here, but I want to say like maybe, you know, a good maybe 15-20% of businesses are starting out their businesses with loans, you know, and that's on the shy side. I feel like that number is much higher, but they're starting out with loans and putting themselves at so much capital or risk without guaranteeing, hey, the demand or the success of this business anywhere before, you know, really pulling out that loan. So I feel like as a young individual, you do need help navigating that space and, you know, learning how to, hey, make sure you have enough consistent demand to take that next leap in it, replacing your income or just becoming a full-time stream of income for you. Something you can truly depend on before you take that leap from, you know, your lifeline into full-time your own business. But going into 2026, man, like, it's something you really want to jump into. And hey, like, it's gonna be something that rewards you and builds you up like nothing else. And trust me, bro, like the freedom to be able to wake up when you want, sleep when you want, go out to eat where you want, experience where you want, be where you want, you know, buy what you want, or have a certain lifestyle, or have travel to certain places, or have not experienced certain things. Sometimes it's because of money, right? I'm not gonna say all the times, but unfortunately here in the US, majority of those times is for money, you know, and it's unfortunate that that's the reality of the world we live in, but it's nothing to really, you know, beat yourself up about, but to slowly start adapting to and becoming more and more efficient in the ability to provide and create opportunities for yourself, especially growing up into adulthood. You know, you're practicing socializing, networking, you know, sales, marketing, and, you know, that real, I guess, accountability for yourself to do the work, to, hey, if you know how I always like to paint it for myself too. If I'm willing to put in 8 hours for someone else, why would I not put in 8 hours for myself? And that's funny because there's a quote by Jim Rohn, a very famous, you know, philosopher and I guess you can say motivational speaker. He says that if you work for someone else, you'll make a living. But the day you start working for yourself, you'll make a fortune. That's a beautiful quote because it's so true. You know, we all only get one chance at this life. You know, why depend on someone else to kind of, you know, keep us on a leash of how much we can make, how much we can, you know, take days off, choose when we want to eat, when we have to wake up, when we have to go home. You know, we can break out of that by independently making opportunities for ourselves that have that outcome of, you know, extra money or extra income. And that's a skill set that's unique and subjective to everyone else's experience. You know, now that I highlight the word subjective, I want to reassure you guys that I mentioned earlier, everyone has different goals in life. So if this isn't your goal, it's really subjective to me. Because that's what changed my life. You know, growing up in this environment of financial stress and scarcity, I reacted to it by wanting to overcome it and not have that feeling of limitation that I'll never own a nice house, I'll never have nice cars, I'll never go to vacation in the world. You know, exploring that for myself as just a human experience and growing, nothing else like it, man. And having to be there, hold myself accountable, and take care of myself while at it. It built up a lot of character and experience for me to now want to help all of you guys, and that's why I make these videos. So going into 2026, man, like really give it some thought to starting your own business, taking action on that idea, marketing yourself, you know, messaging all the friends you know, hey, I just started this, would you mind sharing it on your social media pages? You know, just on the marketing side, right? Let's not even try to convert any sales at this point. Let's just try to get free marketing. Asking around 30 people a day on social media, going through people's followers or anything, 30 people a day times 30 days in a month, that's 900 new people you're meeting. Now, let's go ahead and just step that up, right? And we go to maybe 100 people. Now that's 3,000 people you're meeting, and this number's a little bit easier to calculate. 3,000 multiplied by 12 months, that's already 30,000 plus the other 36,000 people a year. I think, and that's on the shy side. That's only 100 people a day. Once you learn to use multiple social media platforms and you have maybe a sort of a team around, lead generation, this is just going to start amplifying now 36,000 people that are marketing you, sharing you. And that's only at, 100 people a day, assuming all of them do it. Let's go ahead and take all of that off. And we go back to the month basis. 3,000 people. Let's say we lose 90% of them. And that's only 300 people that actually shout you out. So 10% do it, 90% don't. Let's put that realistic expectation, those negative odds against us, right? Using that understanding now, what is 300 people a month times 2 months? 600 people, 900 people actively sharing your account. And those 900 people, you might get another 10% minimum. That's 90 people that you just got as new clients if you do a good job, recurring clients. And now you have 90 clients every 3 months coming in. And then if you do referrals, the business, the character, the branding, the personal branding, the connection, who you are as an individual can scale that higher, all depending on how you begin to navigate it. And that's why I tell people, like, practice this, learn this game, because that's just the marketing side. Now imagine if you ask that many people if they want to buy something from you or don't. It's going to be the same ratios, but now it's more money related to now marketing and sharing. So instead of now establishing market share and getting to be known in your business and your environment, now you're actually trying to convert that marketing into sales, into revenue, profitability for your business. That's the number that you also start working at scale, combining with your marketing to create these new leads of interested individuals and making sure that maybe, hey, they're qualified to even purchase the product. And it's a whole unique, crazy experience, bro, that I'm telling you, bro, like nothing else will develop you in this world. Nothing else, bro. And I wish for every single young man this ability to pursue this, experience it, and have someone there helping there. And that's really why I started coaching people around, building their own businesses.